Just to get things rolling, I'd love to hear that story again you told us earlier on about the lost photograph. Like you were in Chicago to promote Ducktail, right?
Yes.
And at the same time as Bobby Darin is doing his first record and stuff.
Yes.
And, what that was a jukebox convention.
Exactly.
Tell us the story of that again.
Well, what had happened, after I'd done the New York session, I came back home, and like a month later they had a big jukebox convention in Chicago. So my producer called me and picked me up, and we flew to Chicago and do this big jukebox convention. What it is, it's all the jukebox operators all over America, come there to buy the records.
Right.
So that's why they brought me there to introduce the records, and I met Bobby Darin there and Nat King Cole. And what I can remember about, Nat King Cole was a beautiful guy. I remember I was very nervous about the show, because I've never played to that many people in my life. And when I opened the curtains, a gigantic place. And he seen that I was a little nervous about it, so he says, look, this is what you do. Because looking at people will make you nervous. He said, so what you do when you get out on stage is look right on top of their head. And he says, it'll just work.
Nat Cole giving you
yes, and it'll work out fine. And I remember when we were backstage like an hour before the show, Bobby Darin was sitting in the corner all by himself. And every time I seen him, he was by himself. He was like alone, and he just didn't talk to nobody. A very quiet guy. And then anyway, after we done the show, which was a great success, it was great, man. And we had a big banquet that night. And like right before the banquet, like 2 or 3 hours before that, they had a blonde, about 6'5", tall, beautiful woman walking around with half of her clothes on, and she had a big basket in the front of her carrying 16 live chicks, and they had a sign in the front of the basket that says, "Get it quick, it's on Vic, Joe Clay's 16 chicks." Right. And man, every time I think about that, I am so sorry I didn't take a picture of it. No.
Somebody somewhere in that audience must have.
God, yes.
So was that was before the Ed Sullivan show, or?
Yes, it was.
That was in New York, right?
Yes, that was before the Ed Sullivan show, and right after that, that's when we went back to New York, and we done the Ed Sullivan show.
Which is also with Nat Cole on that show.
Yes, yes, he was.
Which is kind of why it's a bit surprising that no one's come up with tapes of that.
Right, yeah, I've been looking for him. I'd love to find that. But I don't have too many good memories of the Ed Sullivan show, because he wasn't too much of a nice guy, man. He was very...
What they say.
Very on a bad ego trip,
And then there's the story about the guitar player you've never heard of. They got to back you.
Exactly. They had 3 guys to practice with me all week long. They had the guitar, bass, and drums, and I'm practicing with them all week. And then, I finally realized this guy. His name was what did I say his name?
Barney Kessel.
Yeah, Barney Kessel. And at the time, right at the time, I'm saying, who is Barney Kessel? Until years later, and I'm still totally freaked out about that.
That's weird, isn't it?
I think the greatest thing that happened on the Ed Sullivan show is, like, I really thought after his show I was going to retire, because he paid $750, and that was like 1956. When I got that check, I told my mom and dad, I said, that's it, we're retiring. We don't have to work again the rest of our life. Because in them days, there was a lot of money. Yeah.
Did they take you up on it? Did your mom and dad retire?
No. No.
So, that was like, you did the New York session before that. And that was kind of like, and you didn't know who Mickey Baker was?
No. Didn't know none of these guys. I just, when they come pick me up to take me to New York to do that session, and they gave me a tape and put me in the hotel room, and it was like early in the morning I was there, and he says, we're going to record tonight. So I listened to the tape, and I listened, and then I finally went to the studio about 7 o'clock at night, and it was a gigantic studio, real big, and it was the RCA Studios. While I was sitting there, I kept reading the lyrics to the song and listening to this little tape recorder. And my producer and all, they were all, checking the mics, they had 3 of them. That was about it.
3 of them on the session?
Yeah,
Yeah,
3 mics. That's all they had. I had a mic, and the band, they had 2 mics, but for the band. And then here come like 4 or 5 of these colored guys carrying all their equipment in a little wagon, like, and they came in the studio where I was. So I'm thinking, well, most probably we're in the wrong studio, you know, because coming from the South, I never did play with colored guys, you know. I just never did. And I found that very strange, and I just knew they couldn't come and play with me. Not for rockabilly, you know, we're not going to do that. And then the producer came out of the room and he says, Joe, I want to introduce you to your band tonight. And I totally freaked out. I said, now how can these guys do rockabilly? I mean, I don't understand that. But I figure he knows what he's doing, so, you know, he said, you just sing the songs like you feel it. They'll be there. So they gave Mickey Baker the tape, and him and the drummers, 2 drummers, and the bass player just stood around, and they played it. They played it for like 30 minutes, and Mickey Baker says, we're ready. And they asked me if I was ready. I said, I guess so, let's go with it. And it happened, man. It was just an explosion that happened.
Yeah, wild session. Like you said, you had people from other studios.
All over the studios there come running to see what's all the excitement over here, you know. Yeah, it was crazy.
And you mentioned that producer a few times. Was that Henry Diaz or
Herman Diaz?
Oh, Herman Diaz.
Yeah.
So it was his decision to book those sessions and book those people.
Yes, it was.
Kind of his idea.
Yes, it was.
And did he supervise the Houston stuff too?
Yes, he did. Same
so
guy.
His idea to take you to where they were doing the Stardate stuff. You know, using those guys.
Yeah, and I think after it was said and done, he didn't like that session too much because he wasn't that happy about it. And that's when I think, you know, he decided and talked to his partner or whatever and says, you know, let's bring him here and let's go a different way with him. Mm. And that's how that come about.
It seemed like an unusual thing to do in the first place because they didn't. Malcolm, is he around?
Yeah.
They didn't really take RCA artists down to Houston much or at all, did they? Really, like that's not a thing.
Not Houston, no, not that often.
It seemed like an unusual thing for him to have decided to do in the first place, unless he knew that those guys could do rockabilly.
Right.
Mind you said you had some problems with the drummer anyway. I like this bit.
Yeah, in Houston, like we had to take maybe 20 takes of each song because the drummer kept speeding up and dragging. And I told the producer that I can play drums, you know, it's no problem. I don't know if he believed me or he just wanted me to sing, you know, because I said, I think I could hold that beat better than he can because he's driving me crazy right now. I mean, I'm singing, and I just wasn't used to things like that, you know. Yeah. But after we finally got some good ones and we're
kind of excited about the prospect of 20 outtakes of those songs, you know. But, they obviously wipe the tapes or them.
Yes, yeah. And then after, you know, when we go to New York and do everything, it's like quite a few songs. Take 1. Okay, that's a cut.
I wonder if Herman Diaz knew about the drummer problem and that's why he got Mickey Baker to get 2 guys in to make sure, you know.
Yeah, that was real crazy. I couldn't quite understand that situation. Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. Yeah.
And on this, and I know this is a question you've been asked a million times, but on the question of drums, you ended up playing with Elvis in, what was it, Pontchartrain or somewhere?
Pontchartrain Beach. I played before him.
Oh, you were on the show?
Yes.
Right.
And then his drummer was sick or whatever happened, and I knew him.
Mm. Yeah,
you know, he was just like a regular dude, you know, like anybody else. And, you know, he was kind of worried about it. I said, Elvis, I know all your stuff. You know, I can play it, man. There ain't nothing to that. And it's just cool, you know, if you want to. And I did, and that's another exciting thing in my life that happened. Well, naturally playing with him, but at the time he was like a nobody, really, just starting out. But I got paid twice that night, so that was pretty cool, man.
You probably got more than his.
Yeah.
So you could retire and have a pension.
Yeah. But so was it just the one show?
That's all. Yeah.
And thinking about it, you must have known DJ Fontana maybe from Louisiana,
Never did.
He's from Shreveport, I think. Right?
Yes, I just met DJ Fontana last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at Green Bay.
Right.
Yeah, never knew him. And also he plays in New Orleans at our
the other thing that goes on these days.
The Ponderosa Stomp. Yeah, he played there a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
Yeah,
right.
I do it every year. I started the first one. I think we're on our third one right now.